Hello, everyone. My name is Gwendolyn Bork. I am the president of Focus for our community unity and support for the Lancaster Depew Addiction Prevention Youth Coalition. So today we are talking about we're in the 2022 to 2023 addiction prevention series. And this is to educate our members as well as those in the community on the strategies that are evidence-based and data-driven that we use to create community-level change here for our youth in the community. And today we're talking about the 7 strategies that affect this type of change, right? So it's 7 strategies that affect community change, how to change the environment and influence the individual for long-term impact. So every year we do this. Every year there's always something new to kind of touch on, and new members and new eyes on the things that are happening within our community. We do focus on youth ages 13 to 18 specifically. And after we collect the data, we have to analyze the data. We have to do focus groups and key informant interviews with the youth to understand a little more on a finite level exactly what's happening with them and their peers or centers of influence along with their peers. How can we help them, support them? And this is what we do. So we are going to get into that right now. So let's see here. I'm going to share my screen. It's just easier to do that. Okay. So on our website, under events, you can see our monthly podcast series and exactly the topics that we talk about. So it always starts in September, it ends in June. And then this always launches the last Friday of the month at 12 o'clock on our YouTube channel. So this month we were talking about, again, the 7 strategies that affect community change. They are environmental strategies. So I kind of like what it says here as far as a broader look at policy. Oh, but how did I get here? This is what I wanted to show you guys. So you go to events, you go to research, you go to prevention science, boom. Here's like a PDF, a link. It's actually a link that you can click on. We'll show you all these things here. So you would go to forourcommunitytoday.org, go to research, then go to prevention science. If you go to our research, obviously, you're going to see all of our data, since we've started, exactly on what happens with our youth in grades 8 through 12. What substances are they using on a monthly basis? How do their parents, their friends and their parents think about it? And any other type of mental health stressors, protective factors, or risk factors that could contribute, to those things. But if you go to research and prevention science, this is the strategic prevention framework that we use. It's developed by SAMHSA. That's our federal office for, mental health, alcohol, and substance use. So environmental strategies. So CADCA, Community Anti-Drug Coalitions of America, who works with our state office. So that's OASIS, our federal office, which we just talked about, the substance use and mental health offices. They've developed these evidence-based, data-driven, and measurable 7 strategies for community change. So as we collect data, as we collect massive amounts of data by surveying all the students 8th through 12th grade every 12 years, every other year, we're doing the focus groups, the key informant interviews. It's like news reporting and doing straight data gathering with the students to see exactly what's happening with them, right? On a very finite level within the Lancaster and Depew communities. That's all Focus. Focus cares about youth addiction prevention, of course, across the world, but our specific demographic are the students who go to the Lancaster Depew school districts. And then to the right of that is this little box, right? That shows you kind of 2 through 6, it's 1 through 7, technically, some of those things, but you see how it goes from like a little, arrowhead to a hand. That's how you can click on it. You click on it, takes you here. This is a place that has 36 pages of what the environmental prevention strategy is, that was developed by CADCA, that uses that framework though from the federal office. And specifically on page 8 is kind of what I want to talk about just a little bit. And I do like, what it says. So it says a broader look at policy, and up in this little box too, you can see that you got individual strategies versus environmental strategies. So you've got individual strategies. It focuses on behavior and behavior change. It focuses on the relationship between the individual and alcohol, drug-related problems. It talks about short-term focus on program development. Individual generally does not participate in decision-making, individual as an audience, right? So one person. Environmental strategies. So instead of the person as an audience, more or less a bystander, they're an advocate. Instead of the individual generally not participating in the decision making, the people actually gain power by acting collectively. Instead of short-term focus on program development, we're looking at long-term focus on policy development. Instead of focusing on the relationship between the individual and the alcohol or drug-related problems, we're focusing on the social, political, and economic context of the alcohol and drug-related problems. Way bigger, right? Panned way out on that one. And then as far as focusing on behavior and behavior change, we're focusing on policy and policy change. So a broader look at policy. Environmental approaches tend to center on policy that shapes perception in communities, homes, or workplaces in local, state, or national venues. Environmental strategies focus on populations and affect large numbers of people through the adoption of systems and policy change and ongoing effective enforcement. Policies, formal or informal, can be enacted locally. Informal policy change can occur at high school, police department, or with local merchants. For example, if a local alcohol retailer is willing to attend merchant education sessions voluntarily, formal policy change is unnecessary. However, if your community determines that parents and other adults are the main suppliers of alcohol to underage drinkers, existing ordinances and laws related to social host issues may require more formal policy change. So, I mean, it does get into more specific things like, you do not immediately head to the state house to get laws enacted, it starts at home. And it gets more kind of into specifics like case studies, I would say. But it does say that environmental strategies are carried out most effectively in the context of a community problem solving. The process is conducted by coalitions. So coalitions can harness the community's power to make change. I love that. A well-functioning coalition engages residents, law enforcement, schools, not-for-profit organizations, the faith community, youth, and other key groups to work in tandem to address community concerns. Coalitions are well positioned to ensure sustained action on pervasive community problems that have eluded simple solutions. And coalitions enable residents to contribute to making a difference in creating the political will necessary to influence development and implementation of lasting policy. So, they're saying environmental strategies are cost effective, giving the potential magnitude of change. Community mobilization is central to creating population level change. After data has been collected and analyzed, coalitions must assess their capacity to effectively address the identified problems. This is especially important when using environmental approaches. Many coalitions have consisted largely of members whose focus has been with individuals, families, and other small groups to elicit change in knowledge, skills, and attitudes, right? So, where's my 7 strategies? There it is. Oh, that's the strategic prevention framework. So let's scroll down. Awesome information here. Like if you really ever do want to get into the nuts and bolts of how we do this, this is where you got to go, guys. It's crazy, but it's so effective. Look at this, just amazing. So here's the 7 strategies to affect community level change. And let me go back to this. All right. In that small little example, it talked about how our effects and impact can be broad. It can be broad because we're not just focusing on one individual. The individual as an audience, right? That individual now, yes, they're with us. They've joined our ranks, and it is them who can now advocate for what they need. And let me tell you, these youth are so smart they're so willing to stand in the gap amongst their peers. They just need a little support. They need a little guidance, and they need more or less, I'd say, the go ahead. Like, yeah, just let us do it. Go ahead. Do what you need to do. We're here to support you, you know? But here's a section of some of the 12 sectors. It goes around the whole corner. Some of it is cut off, but you've got state, local, government, healthcare professionals, religious fraternal organizations, civic volunteer organizations, law enforcement, youth serving organizations, schools, media. We've got, education. We have parents, youth serving. Oh, we got youth serving organizations, prevention organizations. So you bring all this in together and you have just an army ready to go into battle to support the betterment of the community, not only today, but tomorrow, the day after that, and for many, many years to come. So, when people ask, well, do you also, you talk about prevention, or, what you go in the schools, like, what exactly do you do? Well, we're the main source of what we're doing, since we've been funded by this drug-free communities program. We've been collecting data, and then we've been using this process right here to build capacity, get people to the table to help us, like all these people at these sectors, creating relationships and putting together programs with these partners to be able to implement those programs to create a cleaner community, a better community, and then to evaluate our effectiveness, right? This is not where we are one man out there, the general of all focus. And as the general focus, I'm out there doing all the work, and it's just the one man show. No. We've got partnerships in the media with, the Lancaster, Depew B. We have relationships with Spectrum, with Channel 247. We have healthcare professionals. We're partnered with Spectrum Health, with New York, oh my gosh, Project Hope, for emotional support. We have people from the state, local, or local elected local officials that, stand by us. Senator Gallivan from the Senate. We have, Schumer came into town, and actually did a press conference with us when he wanted to talk about the flavors of vapes. We have our Assembly member Wallace. We have our Erie County legislator sitting at our table. We have the mayors, the local mayors. Like, these are all people that are all in tune to trying to help their community, support their community, and facilitate what it is that we need to do to help protect our kids. We have Rotary, the Lancaster Depew Rotary as a civic volunteer organization, the Lions Club that help us out. We've got Centerpoint Church, where we had our first, Glovid, during COVID, our first kind of music fest talent show contest. We were partnered with, tons of other churches in the local area. We work with the different law enforcement from Depew and Lancaster police, the SROs that are working within the schools. And as I mentioned, we focus on Depew and Lancaster schools. So that's just an example of how all of us work together. Who provides our addiction prevention education in the schools? Erie County Prevention Council, Kids Escaping Drugs. Like, these are our partners. We don't do this alone. So back to that environmental strategies, which is right here. So I'm making that point because it is because of all of these people that sit at our table, that represent these sectors, that make us so effective at what we're doing. So when you look at them, it's everything from providing information. So that's creating educational presentations, workshops, seminars, data or media presentation, public service announcements, brochures, billboard campaigns, community meetings, town halls, forums, web-based stuff. You got to get the information out there. If the information is not out there, how are people going to know and be made aware of certain situations or scenarios and opportunities to be, more well-versed on things? So we do community impact conferences every spring and fall. We have panelists showing up. Like, I mean, look at this. Like the caliber of the support that we have here is just paramount to our success. But look at that. Just in the spring of 2022, we had the owner of Chick-fil-A, Mitch Martin, the chief of community services for Erie County Sheriffs, Christine Zamba from Spectrum Health, Mayor Peterson from the Village of Depew, Deputy Mayor Hamnick from the Village of Depew, Andrew Picotto, Senior Manager in Community Relations at Top Friendly Markets, Glenn Jackson, Chief Diversity Officer, M&T Bank. In the fall, we had Senator Gallivan, Tom Quinn, CEO of Western New York Impact Fund, Sherry Scavone, CEO of Western New York Women's Foundation, Darnell Haywood, Community Responsibility Officer for Bank on Buffalo. Like, guys, we have everybody sitting at the table. It's just amazing. Anyway, though, so we provide information. We did a full out, informational type of gathering where we had not-for-profits around the room so that they could be made, people could be aware of who they are and the support that they need. And we just talked about, hey, what's happened with the Gen Zs and, the Gen Ys in our community and their needs, and some of the data that came out of our most recent needs assessment, right? So that's one way to educate. And we always do a town hall every year as well, which specifically talks about us and the data and next steps from our key findings. 2, enhance skills. That's anything from workshops, seminars, activities designed to increase the skills of the participants, members, staff. So it's training, technical assistance, strategic planning, retreats, parenting classes, model programs in schools. Guys, this right here, I'll tell you, we are busy, on offline, right? We are constantly, like every month we meet with the Western New York Prevention Resource Center with all the other coalitions. Everybody talks about what they're doing, who they're working with, the next seminar, the next workshop that they're going to be on to be more effective at and more aware of what's happening in our communities at large, but also make us effective individually as a coalition. Provide support was another thing, to create opportunities, support people to participate in activities that reduce risk or enhance protection. So it's providing alternative activities, mentoring, referrals for services, support groups, youth clubs, parenting groups, NA, AA. We're like a resource broker. We can't do everything, but we can know people who are doing things. We have partners with People Against Trafficking Humans, PATH. Huge traffic area. Buffalo is a huge trafficking hotspot. Between the churches and the NAs and the AA programs, or all the other addiction recovery, resources that we have available to us that can help those who are struggling maybe in that moment, like Kids Escaping Drugs, a Renaissance House, the mentoring, I'm on the advisory board for the Depew High School for the Academy of Finance. We mentor, the whole high school that is involved in the program. So it's more than that, right? And we help create those opportunities for our members by connecting them with a lot of our partners. Strategy number 4, enhance access, reduce barriers, improving systems and processes to increase the ease, ability, and opportunity to utilize systems and services. So that could be access to treatment, childcare, transportation, housing, education, special needs, all those things. So we're trying to reduce the barriers that have an effect on how a child could or could not be successful in their academic career, which could potentially affect their future, right? 5, change consequences, incentive, disincentives. So we're increasing or decreasing the probability of a specific behavior that reduces risk or enhances protection by altering the consequences for performing that behavior. So you're going to increase public recognition for deserved behavior. We recognize a whole bunch of 7-Elevens and stores and even restaurants during COVID when it was still allowable for them to, restaurants specifically, where they could have drive-through, alcohol pickups and, food. And so it's like there was so much going on. And our local restaurants did such a great job. We did have an issue. I forgot if it was DoorDash or Grubhub with someone who, didn't check an ID. But again, what are we going to do about that? We forget that, yeah, these apps, they're great, but they're not exactly foolproof. But we're trying to recognize those that are really doing the right thing, and for those who aren't, we're not here to, like it says, the maybe do citations, fines, loss of privileges. That's not our goal. Really isn't to create a disruption. But if you are a disruptor, yeah, I mean, we work with we work with local law enforcement. We work with people who can kind of get you back on course and give you responsible server training and make sure that you're not, doing things that could risk the legitimacy of your business. 6, change physical design. Change the physical design or structure of the environment to reduce risk or enhance protection. So we're thinking parks, landscapes, signage, lighting, outlet density. Yeah, that could be anything from, like they said, putting a light up under, a certain dark area of the park where maybe we know that kids are overdosing and, cutting down a couple of bushes or something, but it's something even as simple as that, just so that they're, it's more open and we could see what's going on. And I mean, geez, it was heartbreaking when we found out about the couch that they just put by the railroad tracks and somebody overdosed right there, like right in Lancaster, well, it might have been Depew. I don't know if that was Lancaster or Depew, but still in our community, so like little things like that, right? Just to help upgrade our community safety. 7, modify change policies, formal change in written procedures, bylaws, proclamations, rules or laws with written documentation, voting procedure. It could be workplace initiatives, law enforcement procedures, public policy actions, communities and organization. When we think to modify or change policies, a lot of times what we were doing is we were working with the school districts and their SROs before marijuana was legalized on a recreational basis to say, hey, what's your code of conduct? Like, are you guys ready for this? Like, what are you going to do when, marijuana use potentially could go up the roof? Like we know this based on other states, it just happens. So what are you going to do? And what is your code of conduct going to say? Like, that's a policy, right? What's your policy going to be? We're still working with our schools. Like, hey, maybe this shouldn't be more of a punishment, but maybe more of an educational thing. I mean, Depew, if a kid gets busted with a vape or like a dab pen or marijuana pen, they're not just like booting the kids and saying, hey, hasta la vista, we'll see you later. These kids are actually getting educated on the risks of vaping, and they're getting educated on the risks of smoking marijuana, like at an early age before their brains developed, So these are just like small little things that, and believe it or not, they were actually these strategies themselves. So when I say that, like our federal office uses them, our state office uses them, they were developed by the University of Kansas during a work group on health promotion and community development. It was a World Health Organization collaborating center. So the World Health Organization Collaborating Center created this work group. They came up with these, they selected these strategies, documented them in the Kedkes Institute, and that's what we now are being trained on as an addiction prevention coalition. So I hope that this helps understand helps you understand as an outsider kind of looking in, or if you are working with our organization or you want to work with our organization and you have that passion that everybody has a place, everybody has a talent, it's something they could bring to the table, because this is a community level change. This isn't for just you as an individual. This is for every individual to be affected long-term in our community. So thank you for your time, for your support. And we look forward to seeing you next